What's up, everyone? I'm back. And I got a friend. You can scoot over. It's okay.
I don't want to be that close to you.
Welcome to the Honky Tonk Highway, guys. I am Kelly Cavallaro, and today I am joined with a special guest for this comeback show, Mr. Showcase himself, my partner in crime for the controversial conversations, Mr. John Robinson.
Hola. ¿Cómo está? I'm only speaking Spanish today.
We're in for a long show then. We're in for a long show. I have to admit, it was a little surreal and a little weird hearing that music, the intro music for the countdown again. As Jim says, special with air quotes. We decided when I knew John was coming to visit me that it would be a good idea to bring the show back. We've already been recording new podcasts. For those who didn't see it, we dropped a new one on Monday when he was traveling here. I dropped a new one. Didn't tell him I was dropping the last one we pre-recorded back last December. And we had already planned, since he was going to be here, to do a live show on a bunch of different stuff, if you notice in the title. Little hodgepodge. We're going to answer your questions. We're going to talk about pretty much anything under the sun. I was given specific instructions by my wife yesterday. You two, please try not to upset too many people today. And I will apologize now if I can't keep any promises. But first off, if you don't yet, guys, hit over, subscribe, like, do everything on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, also on TikTok. We're constantly putting up new content, constantly putting up podcasts, different walkthrough videos. Walkthrough Wednesday will be coming out later this evening. Throwback Thursdays, all good stuff. We started to talk about it Tuesdays to get ideas and to get everyone talking about different stuff. Also, if you haven't yet, head over, subscribe to the podcast. It's free. It's on Spotify, Apple, Google, a couple different locations. We've released 12 of these episodes so far of Controversial Conversations. We recorded 2 new ones yesterday. We got, I know of 4 in the works that we're going to try to record between today and tomorrow before he heads over to Birmingham for Dancing with the Dream with Scooter Lee this weekend. Also, if you want to go back and just listen and not watch 2 old episodes of the Honky Tonk Highway, you can do that as well, as I got a ton of episodes up on both Spotify and Apple there. So, I titled this, as you can see from Talk About It Tuesdays, what do we look for in dances? Are there too many levels? And how has line dance evolved?
I have no thoughts whatsoever.
Yeah.
Good one, Jim.
Yeah, good one. Lots of people joined us in the chat, as you can already see. We got Dancing Terry, one half of Laura and Gordo. Laura's in the chat. Biggie Jim, Amy Gross, Mr. Turner, Terry, Lucy, Nancy Winters watching us over on YouTube. Michelle, good old Maddie B, and Britt Baresic is all on. So we recorded a podcast. I'm going to preface this. So we've already talked about the one portion of this. The Talk About It Tuesday. What do you look for in when you're learning to dance? If you want to learn it, or if you're going to teach it, if you're an instructor. I know I was very happy when 90% of people did use the word music. I'm very, very happy for that. The second part, of course, are there too many levels? And that's going to get the fiery part. I have a feeling that might upset some people when we get to that part. And then how has all that and line dancing evolved? And as John just sits here and shakes his head, it's great. We're joined by Shani Mack here, and Mr. Jonathan Sack, as well as Elaine Cook. Lots of people joining us. I'm loving this. Loving being back. This could be bad.
I'm frightened.
I'm very frightened. So, as Jason says, and Fred says, yo, double trouble. Hey, Fred, I don't know if I talk about that. There was a post I saw today on Facebook about $25 million in At Your Second. I won't get into comments or the details of that. And
Shane and Fred was what I saw.
I did, and double trouble. So, right off the bat, I love it. Jason Turner said it, hit it on the nail. I've been saying this I don't know. Okay, let me preface this. Do I think there are too many levels? that people are putting on dances, yes. I think, are there too many levels that we should be constricted to? No. Like, not Copper Knob. Line Dancer Web says it best for their Crystal Boot Awards. Absolute beginner, beginner, improver, intermediate, advanced. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it. Now, if you go to Copper Knob and look at some of the dances that are levels that are put on step sheets, high beginner, low improver, aren't those the same thing? It wouldn't just a high beginner be a low improver dance then?
So the question is, how do we determine the level? Who makes that determination? What are the parameters that determine the level of a dance? And right now, honestly, I feel it's just a matter of what the choreographer chooses. Part of that has to do with who are they trying to market it to sometimes, right? So if you have a dance that's Guyton Mundy's on, woohoo!
I know, we get joined by the legend himself.
First of all, before I continue talking, I have to tell you, there are like 19 cameras in here, and I have no idea where to look. Right? So if you see my eyes darting around, it's because there's a camera there, and a camera there, and a camera there, and a camera there.
If no one saw the post I posted about 45 minutes ago that we were set up ready to go, I might have a new toy that I got for an event I got coming up. I have a HDMI A10 mini switcher. So I have literally a screen with a multi-view on the left of me. I have my screen in front of me and a screen to the right. That's both my computer. I then have 1, 2, 3, 4 cameras set up and my iPad plugged in. So, yeah, it's a little bit a lot. Go take out that picture. You'll be able to see that.
I just moved the mic closer to me so you can hear me better. Hopefully that will help.
So,
is there a black couch?
That. Guy, let John get closer to the mic. He has his own. He doesn't like to have it that close for some reason. I don't know.
Well, I could also yell.
There, I gave you a thumbs up. There you go. Apparently, he just needs to talk louder like me.
I know. I'm good at projecting. I feel weird being in a house. I don't want to shout. So anyway, back to talking about determining levels. So we were discussing this earlier before we started this, and Kelly said, if we look back 2 years ago, I mean, not 2 years ago, years and years ago, look back at the way dances were classified then. So basically we had, honestly, anybody can make up any level they wanted, really, back then. But pretty much we had beginner, intermediate, advanced. That was pretty much it. And people would qualify their dances by adding on either high or low to indicate that, let's say you were doing an intermediate dance. Well, you could have high intermediate or low intermediate. High meaning it'd be a little more complicated, and low meaning closer to, beyond beginner, but not quite as challenging as, obviously, a high intermediate dance. Most people, we tried to avoid, and I think this happens today as well, that we try to avoid using the term advanced. Most choreographers, I feel, avoid that because they feel like
chickens.
All of them. No one's going to do it, right, if you call a dance advanced. But honestly, I feel, my personal feeling is there's no specific guideline, so to speak. So choreographers tend just to, number one, pick the audience they want to aim for. And without calling out specific, I'm trying not to irritate people, but without calling out specific dances that I come to mind, there are dances that are labeled beginner that fill floors that are definitely improver, right? If we want to call it improver. Now we seem to have beginner, improver, intermediate, advanced, the common things that we see most of the time, and then of course absolute beginner as well. But I'm just saying most dances that we see are labeled one of those 4 things right now, and a lot of them are mislabeled, right? Because the patterns that are included in those dances are not patterns that are appropriate for that level of dancer. If we go competition-wise, Kelly, like UCWDC, UCWDC labels it differently. UCWDC labels it newcomer, novice, intermediate, advanced, right? So no matter what the terms are, because some people have issues. I remember looking at some of the comments on the Facebook post where people are like, improver is insulting, because what are you improving from? Well, is beginner insulting? I mean, there are people,
Right.
well, and what I mean by that is there are people who prefer to dance at what I would call, they like those beginner level, they like the easier dances, let's put it that way. But they get annoyed because they don't consider themselves beginners, but that's the level they prefer. So
I like Jason Turner's comment here. It says, I was once told by an instructor that they enjoy the high improver, low intermediate definitions, categories, as they use them as stepping stone for their students to advance them.
say that again.
He likes to use the words high improver or low intermediate. He was told this by an instructor because they use them as stepping stone for their students to advance them. Why? My first question would be why? Because, no offense, if you look at every schedule known to mankind, every schedule from every dance event you've ever been to, do you ever see that on there? I can name maybe one off the top of my head that does it.
On the schedule, you mean?
On the schedule. So they're going to get a schedule. Is that going to deter someone from going to the class? If it's low intermediate compared to an intermediate dance? I don't think so. If that was the case, I would be curious of what those statistics are. Well, and Jason says that was my question, along with what step made it different. Because here's the thing. If it's labeled with anything in the word intermediate out, isn't it going to be when it comes down to award time in the intermediate category? Wouldn't that put it in the intermediate category? So what's the difference between a low, high, or advanced? Because I've seen this, people use the word advanced intermediate. Would love to know what the difference is there. I remember we did the show back during COVID. I did a show, and Trevor went through. Guyton, they just saw my name and said, "Oh hell." I remember actually a conversation Guy and I had when we were talking about this back when he was still around, and he was like, "There is newcomer, there's beginner, improver, there's intermediate, there's advanced, and then there's whatever me and Roy had as a brodo and Fred Whitehouse, right?" And he isn't necessarily wrong. And this came back on when I did the Talk About It Tuesday post about this. Debbie Rushton actually put in there that she would like to see more broken up categories for the higher levels. We see all these low ones broken up, but why aren't the high ones? Like you see that all the time, and I do agree with that. Megan said, didn't Max Perry put out a guideline for Evergo regarding step seats in the different categories? Yeah, but here's the question about that, and I'm going to get to that because line dancer did the same thing, and no one follows it.
Right. And
we've seen this with the way the categories, the awards, and stuff like that. But also, what brought up our conversation earlier, dancing's evolved since. No offense to Max Perry, legend, one of the all-time greats. Dancing's evolved in the last 25 years. We used Hideaway Cha earlier as an example. If you look up the step sheet for Hideaway Cha, it's actually labeled as an advanced dance. I don't know a single person out there that knows it, or let me rephrase that, knows it well, would probably consider that in this day and age, with what's released, an advanced dance at all. No offense to the three choreographers, Joe, Jamie, Joanne. It's my favorite dance of all time.
Right, and keeping in mind that when, this is what we were talking about before we started this today, keeping in mind that years and years and years ago, for example, when I started dancing in the early 90s, right, we did not have super complicated routines.
I love that word, routines.
We didn't have...
That's a whole nother topic because I know we were just talking about that too.
Yeah, we didn't have things like Come Alive. We didn't have Fred Whitehouse choreographing, things like Witness or you know what I mean. Times have changed, so I think that has to be considered as well. I mean, because if you, especially like you said, Kelly, if you look back, like my dance at the time when I put out Dangerous, that was considered advanced. I would not call that advanced now, right? But back then, we didn't have a lot of athletic, jumpy aroundy dances that you did arm movements to,
Jumpy around.
So it was at that time, and it took an hour to teach that back then. Now I can teach that thing in like 30 minutes, like 32 minutes. We're done with a 64 count dance, right? So I think sometimes we also see part of the issue is different cultures, different countries. So I see this a lot over here. We have instructors who come from overseas, right? And they're used to teaching, let's say, I'll give you a specific example from my own career. First time I went to Finland, never having been there, I had 2 dances ready to teach in my hour slot, okay? The first dance, that students learned it and danced it to music in about 18 minutes. So I taught the second dance, and we were done in like another 10 minutes with that one because it wasn't as hard as the first one, which is why I included it with the second one, right? So then I had to add in more dances because these people were learning them like really quickly, like little sponges. It was amazing. But my point is, when we have instructors who come from other countries, sometimes in other countries, they learn quicker, right? They're used to being taught at a different pace, or even learning patterns that are a little more complex. So that affects, I think, choreographers' impressions of what level a dance is as well when they're choreographing it and releasing it and trying to label it.
I'm gonna read off Kayla Cosgrove, and hi, Kayla.
So many comments I can't.
I know. As I'm reading them as you go, it's great. Kayla says all possible with a governing body, right? And in parentheses, UCWDC, anyone who's the not self-proclaimed governing body in social line dancing. I'm going to disagree here though, because in UCWDC, they're not worried about how a dance is defined. They're worried about the level of a dancer. The divisions in the UCWDC for line dancing are the level of the dancer, not necessarily the level of the dance. If you look at the dances they usually select, a lot of them are written by people specifically for the competition, and they try to put elements of that in there. That being said, in the choreography, yeah, but no offense. Okay, I won a world championship at the UCWDC Worlds, and I was judged by a panel of judges that maybe of the whole thing, 3 of them truly knew line dance choreography. I'm willing to admit that. I'm willing to say, yes, I have a UCWDC world title in choreography. Was it judged by people who know line dancing choreography? Not really. I can name one judge off the top of my head that I know that was on there. Yeah, about to say you, Tim, you are.
I knew that was coming, Tim.
Timmy, love you, bro, and you know that those comments are meant for you because you are one of the few that I know do know line dancing. Roy Hadasbrota was on our panel as well, and the rest of them were mainly couples dancers that got certified in line dancing. Do they know what line dancing is supposed to look like in a competition format? Yes. Do they know what maybe will be successful and work in a choreography comp for a social event? No. And like Tim says, not only do you have to look at the steps, but also the speed of the song and also the speed of the dance. Yes, you can do easy steps, but if they're syncopated, it changes the level of the dance as well as a step combo. Correct.
I'm glad that you pointed that out because I wanted to make sure we got to that before it zipped off the screen here. So that has a lot to do with it as well. You can do, even if you have beginners, for example, and you have a quote-unquote beginner level dance, if you take it to a song that's 212 beats per minute, they're going to struggle. It doesn't matter that the step patterns are easy. That also affects it as well, the speed of the track, the tempo, right? So that's something to keep in mind also.
Yeah, and nothing against. Do I think we need
Maddie B, why are you zipping your lip shut?
Yeah, yeah.
This is a free forum.
No, I know. I have a feeling I know why Maddie B's keeping her lips. And yeah, like Megan said, I can only say 1, maybe 2 judges for sure from this last year, and it's nothing against it. They're kind of handcuffed because since it is a governed competition, they have to have judges. So they couldn't get the judges that were there for the social aspect to judge that part of the competition because it is a sanctioned event. I remember back when I first went to my first UCWDC World Championship, and I'm going to date myself. This was back in 2000-ish, the beginning of 2000s, when Guyton was there and Guyton got involved. I remember looking at the judging panel. You had Gene Gar, you had Scott Blevins, you had Ann Cunningham, I believe it was. You had all these people who knew line dancing. that were back then certified judges. So the choreography competition, which mind you took like 14 hours that day, there was 5 divisions. I can't even tell you how many, but and this is back when you actually had to qualify. You actually had to go to a UCWDC event prior with the dance you intended to bring to Worlds, dance it, and then had to bring those same dances, not a new dance, the same dances you competed. So, Guyton, it was a long day. Yes, it was. I remember that. I remember it very, very well, and that's back when it was. It was like the first year of the USLDCC. The first year there was, I remember Boston, there was like 90 entries, 90-something entries.
It was a lot.
It was a lot. I remember it, and you just don't have those anymore. So it doesn't really warrant, and I don't want to say use the word warrant, but it's hard. It's hard to sit there and say, yeah, we're going to have 19 judges. We're going to have 19 people that are certified to judge line dancing for 4 entries. Because I've seen what they get, and you don't have to qualify no more. Yeah, like Guyton said, 30 to 50 competitors in each division. Yeah. It was crazy. Those were the days, and it was nuts. But
we
governing bodies shouldn't matter, though. Governing bodies shouldn't matter. If that was the case, like Nina put up earlier, Line Dancer Web, Line Dancer Magazine has had out for years that statute, that whole list of what should go in what should go in this, what should go in that. And how often do we see that actually get followed?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with very little, none. Like she said, some do follow it. Yeah, some. How well do they do? No offense.
It's that's a tough one because you can publish guidelines. You can part of it to me. Okay, so I'm crazy, right? You all know that. Part of it to me is common sense. I think what happens when, especially if you have people who've been around, who've been dancing for a while and choreographing for a while, they forget what it's like to be a beginner. So sometimes they think, oh, a beginner can do a quarter turning sailor. And it's like, no, they can't. That's not a beginner step. That's common sense, right? So if some of it is using your judgment properly and knowing that that's a good point. Tim just said what's easy to one person is hard for another. So that does make it difficult to kind of classify things.
Yeah.
And that happens to me when I teach. A lot of times when I'm teaching a dance, there'll be a specific part of the choreography that I think, oh, this is easy. They'll get this in like 5 seconds. And then we spend 15 minutes on that one little pattern because everyone's struggling. And then the other pattern that I think, this will be really tricky. They learn it in like 2 seconds. So
well, here's the issue, and Kayla just said it beautifully, but I got something on that. She says, social, if we want to be on the same page with everyone writing dances, and I mean everyone, having a panel of professional making those guidelines to define levels, it got messy once everyone is a choreographer. Here's the problem with that. The professionals don't agree. The professionals don't agree with each other at all. I'll give you a perfect example. I believe it was year 2 of the USLDCC. I competed a dance that I labeled as, back then it was still newcomer novice. So I labeled it novice. Took it to a competition, competed it. Got told by 2 or 3 of the judges on the judging panel, that dance is too hard for that division. You need to put it in intermediate.
I remember this.
He does. Went to the very next competition, entered the exact same dance. I never published it on Copper Knob. Entered the exact same dance. Only thing I changed was the word intermediate on the top of the step sheet. 2 of those 3 judges were on that panel. Got told now that it was too easy. Yeah, as Megan said, I remember this story. It was too easy for that level. So what's a choreographer and up and coming back then supposed to do?
Well, that's Kelly. That's a perfect example of what I mean when I say, there needs to be it would be helpful if there was some sort of guideline, if everybody was on the same page. But I don't know if that's ever going to happen.
But
right?
I don't think it will because they don't agree. We see that very apparent by the way the level, everyone just writes high improver,
right.
low intermediate on stuff.
That directly relates to what I was saying earlier about people in different cultures in different countries find...
Kayla, it wasn't the UCWDC, it was the USLDCC. It was a competition that,
I do wonder, though, if that, comes from Oh, look, Shane. Let's talk about Shane for a second.
Actually, he makes a decent point here. He says, I think choreographers use terms high improver and low intermediate to try and cover a wider audience. High improver might tempt intermediate classes also do the dance and vice versa, and it works. The majority of the most popular dances are those that are on the edge of two categories. Yeah. But I'm curious if the dance is good. If the dance is good, and this goes to it at events, if the dance is great, if the improver dance is absolutely amazing, does it matter? Because everyone's going to learn it anyway. I can throw a Lonely Drum. Lonely Drum's a perfect example.
What is it labeled as?
I'm just saying. You got
You
got all those improver dances that intermediate dancers are still doing.
Yeah.
JP doesn't just say, okay, we have a beginner room. We have an intermediate advanced room. Where's the improvers go? Most of the improver stuff is played in the main ballroom. It's just how it is. I see the point. I see why they do it. I really do. And I've said this when we did the podcast. I see why they do it. No, Maddie, we are not. Nina just said, give me shivers. Well, Nina, I've told Brandon Zahorsky this. John was there. I thought give me shivers was miscategorized anyway. I don't think it should be labeled improver at all. If you take the basic of the dance, the basic 32 counts of the dance, without doing the spins, without doing the hops, I don't consider that an improver dance. I would consider that a beginner dance. Yes, it is labeled improver. And yes, it is done in every ballroom. I don't care if you're a country event, swing event, UCWDC event, USLDCC. Yeah. And like Megan just said, this past weekend at Hot, improver stuff was played in both the main room and the beginner rooms. So exactly, where do you throw that category? Oh, it's not hard. Boom. Jason said competing in improver dance in USLDC was told it was an intermediate dance based on the certain steps. However, according to the USLDC rules, there are step restrictions, and the dance did not include any of those steps. What do we do then? I would love to see that one, Jason, because you know me on the USLDC step rules. Yeah. I would love that, and I was actually just going to bring that. There are step restrictions for the beginner, intermediate, the beginner improver division, the old newcomer novice division, and this just put it in position. Justin Valcata danced the dance this past weekend at Hot that he ended up dancing in intermediate, because of that step rule. Because of that step rule, and he won the newcomer novice division in Vegas for Vegas' comps.
I need to jump in there, though, and say something. And Kelly knows exactly what this is, because one of the step patterns that was not included in the USLDCC list is Applejack. And Kelly put him in his dance.
I did.
And he's like, technically it's legal because it's not listed, but we all know that's not considered an improver or beginner level pattern, right? But he was pushing it, right?
Yeah, hold on. But what happened? What happened? I took the one step out, and this is what bugs me the most about this. I entered it in the beginner improver division. I remember. And Nicole Calgary goes, I remember that. Yeah, because you danced the dance with me. I entered it in the beginner improver division. At the time, it was newcomer novice. I put in the only step that was in question was Applejacks. It is not listed as a restricted step. You're absolutely right. It's still to this day, I don't think we're listed as a restricted step. I took the step out. Very next event, guess what happened? That dance won. Now, one step. I switched it to touches from Applejacks, which is a great, honest alternative that was on the step sheet, and it won. And Laura Gordon just said, I can confirm it's not restricted. But I guarantee you, I argued with three judges that day.
Yeah.
It was not pretty.
My point is there. I mean, I'm pretty sure we would all agree that Applejacks is not a beginner move.
But hold on, the division is not beginner. This is the problem.
Well, you know what I'm saying.
The division is not beginner now.
Right. I understand.
It's a combined category.
Right, I understand. But that's the part of where people are saying, because I can't keep up with all these things flashing by me here. But people are saying like there needs to be, specific guidelines and blah, blah, blah. But sometimes those guidelines don't have everything in them, as my point, right? And then people like to push the guidelines anyway. They would, if someone's going to find it and say, oh, that's not in there, so I'm going to do this. But that's where sometimes common sense has to prevail, right? There's no way. Kelly and I had a very interesting discussion about that. And I said, I see your point, right? Based on the rules of the organization, it's legal, but everybody knows that move is not appropriate for that level of dance, right? I mean, it doesn't.
Hold on a minute, though. Hold on. No. I actually have an honest question here. I 100% agree that it's not appropriate for a beginner dance
or improver. Jacks are a very challenging move.
But I was
It's always a big but.
No, this is not a big one. I listed alternative step. I danced it the way I wrote it, according to the rules, is not illegal.
Yes.
How is it up if there's a list of steps?
Yeah. But you understand where we're going with this, right? Because who's making the determinations of what's included and what's not included, whether it's for a choreography competition or just social dancing.
But hold on. That was weird. There we go. Everyone should be back now. That was odd. All of a sudden, I just got a notice. Okay, back to what I was saying. If you're, as a judge, giving a set of rules to follow, and I don't break those rules, how is it? Let's see if I'm back. It says I'm on.
Can you hear us? Can you see us? Somebody comment. We're having technical issues here.
Okay, good. We're back.
Something about backflip.
Good. Yeah, Shane posted about a backflip, so I know he heard that, and we're back.
What did he say?
He said, "I'm sure." He goes, "It's hard to hear John." No, it says, "I'm sure backflip isn't specified in the rules. Maybe try that next time." So I get it, but we're not talking about. Well, actually, it is listed in the rules because it says you can't leave the ground.
Right. But
actually, so technically, a backflip is listed because it says you cannot leave the ground. You cannot leave the ground. That is in the rules. So that brings me up to my question: How is it okay if Nina says, come on, you have to think about the instructors and the dancers. Nobody wants to struggle with one combination and routine that otherwise are through for 20 minutes. We want to dance on higher levels. Yes. I am thinking about the instructors and the dancers. In my step sheet, I gave an alternate step for the Applejacks. Just like every other choreographer that has a name puts in their turning options for people who don't want to turn. It's no different. But we're talking about a straight up rule in a competition. We're not talking about for a social aspect. We're talking about for a competition. Okay? That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah. And I hear what you're saying, and we've had this discussion before.
We have.
Yeah. So I completely.
You were there when I wrote the dance. You were there. I was in Indianapolis, Indiana, 2 weeks before the competition.
Yeah.
Literally.
So I'm still going to say part of it is common sense, right? That's where the common sense has to take over. So when I'm judging, of course, I'm going to go by whatever the rules are of the organization. And every organization is different, right? So judging, let's say, USLDCC comp is not the same as judging a UCWDC comp, which is not the same as judging the choreography at Fort Wayne. They all have different parameters.
Actually, Lynn Card, I want to read this out loud because I'm going to ask you a question. Lynn says, I hear both sides, but as a competitor, if I want to win, then I wouldn't push the boundaries. But sometimes amateur choreographers are also just trying to get exposure for dances. Yes, no. It's like American Idol. It's not always the winner who has the most success after.
That's true.
I actually have a question for you then. Your daughter is a dancer. And are you telling me her choreographers don't push the boundaries and push her limits and push this up to make her a better dancer and a better competitor? That's what we're talking about here. Yeah. It's just like with what Guyton was doing back in the day with choreography. He pushed people's. You can't tell me when you saw him show up that you were expecting when he turned around and said, "I'm going to put tutting in a dance," or "I'm going to put pop and lock in a dance," that everyone was like, "Oh yes, that's exactly what line dance needs." Come on. You and I both know that's not how that happened.
Right. I remember the first time I saw Guyton, I'm like, who is that weirdo?
Right. It's that you got to push because guess what? Here's the thing: if you play it safe and all you do is play, if everyone played it safe and everyone did the exact same thing, we would have 472 million dances that all look alike.
Aren't there already 462 million dances that all look alike?
That's my point. I got told. I know you've heard this story, and I've told a couple other people this story. I was told by a judge one time, if I want to write a nightclub two-step dance,
oh, Lord.
You remember this. You were at this event, so you know this. If I wanted a winning nightclub, I should just go look at the top 10 nightclubs on the charts, on Copper Knob, take 8 counts from every one of them, call it my own dance. Bam.
I did not give that.
That was told to me from a judge that judged me at a USLDCC competition. How is that evolving our craft or evolving our world? Lynn says yes, but they do a whole different world of dancing than what I do. Yes and no. They do. It's the same thing. It's like he said earlier about routines. Okay, about calling routines thing. You can't tell me that you couldn't take, and I'm going to use Shane and Rachel, Come Alive. Did anybody ever thought we'd be doing a line dance like Come Alive? Or when Simon and Rachel did...
is that a line dance?
When Simon and Rachel did Hairspray. It's the same style. You're taking a line dance and involving it and challenging everyone. Yeah, it's the same concept. It's like...
So, but what I do understand what Lynn is referring to, though, because I'll give you a specific example from UC WDC competition where somebody pushed the boundaries and lost. So I don't know if she'll mind me saying this, but I was a judge. Rachel was competing, and she started her routine off the floor. That was not allowed
at the time.
At the time. So a conference was called. Rachel, at that time, definitely had truth. As a professional, as a judge and a professional dancer, she had the best routine, right? She should have won. She should have taken first place. And actuality, on all of our ballots, just to put this out there, I hope this is okay for me to say this now, years and years later, but she was in first place. However, we were told that we had to disqualify her because she started her routine off the floor, which was not allowed. And basically, the judging panel stood united as one and said, we're not disqualifying her. She's the best dancer on the floor. This is crazy. We're not going to disqualify her. So she had to come in second place, right?
Yep.
So that's a good example of when you push the boundaries, it can backfire. And my comment, so after the event, I'm going to quickly wrap the story up, but after the event was finished, all the judges ran away. I was the only one who stayed behind to actually talk to Rachel's family about what happened, right?
Yeah.
And because they were all like, that was so wrong. She was obviously the superior. Of course, it's her family. They're, invested in her. But I said, we all agreed. All of we pretty much, I think this is safe to say now, years and years later, but we all had her in first place. But we were told we had to disqualify her, meaning she wouldn't have been, she'd have been kicked out of the competition, basically. So in capitulation, they let us put her in second place. So
yeah, but
musical theater category, I love it.
I hate that. That's what the UCWDC did that with stage because they said, older people didn't want to dance funky. And I'm like, but so now everyone's got to dance the 6 divisions because of it. I'm like, that I don't. Right. Now it's called street. Stage. Right. But, and Nina, Chris Jocks, what I miss a lot. Nina said, it's not about making it boring. It's about sticking to the level. Can still be creative. I 100% agree to you. The problem is a definition of what the level is actually supposed to be. That's the issue. That's straight up the issue right there. Because nobody can agree on what the level should be. And if you go on Line Dancer, if you look at what it actually says for absolute beginner, that's not followed right off the rip. By 90% of people. There are still some. I said there are still some. Before everybody else gets upset, I said 90. There are some that do it. But then there's lots of people who don't. It's just how it is.
So then we, that's where we have, I'm glad you said that because it brings to mind the conversation where people say, "Oh, beginner dances should never have tags or restarts." Which,
according to line dancers, absolute beginner dances are not.
well,
I think the definition. I do agree. I think the absolute definition of absolute beginner needs to get changed.
Part of one of the biggest issues I have, Kelly, with line dancing in general, just as long as I've been doing it, there's no musical education component in it. So people, I remember when I first started line dancing, right? You get on the floor, you do this dance. We didn't do tags and restarts back then. Heaven forbid. When the first dance that I learned that had, I think it was a tag in it, only it was called a break, was Money in the Bank, or Break in the Bank by Melanie Greenwood, the same lady that did Don't Tell My Achy Breaky Heart, right? And you did this section, this pattern, and you literally yelled break, and it was like 10 counts or something. It was it was literally what we would call a tag now, right? But back then, we didn't have that. So the issue there was I loved it. I'm very musical, right? I love music. I love hearing music, interpreting it, playing with the steps when I'm doing a dance. So I try to pay attention to the musical structure, and I think there are a lot of teachers just everywhere who never even address that topic. Like, how do you know when to start the dance? How do you know where to count in? We just count in for the students, right? And they never have to do it themselves. There's no clue as to like, well, how do you know where to start? How do you know when to count? What is a phrase? When does a phrase begin and when does a phrase end? So there's that whole aspect of it as well, where I feel like beginners can do dances with a tag. Let's say the tag is a hold for 4 beats of music. That's not a difficult move for a beginner to do. And if they know the song, if they know when it's coming, they can easily accomplish it. So that affects levels as well, right? You have the whole camps of people that go, oh, beginners should never learn anything with a tag or restart. And then you have people like me who goes, well, if you train them to hear the music properly, they'll be able to do a tag or restart if it's simple.
Jason, while I agree with your comment, because Jason says Adia has had a restart in her beginner USLDC winning choreography, worked totally fine, and she was amazing in getting to it. Her dance is not labeled beginner. Her dance is labeled improver. So, yes, it won the beginner improver category, or back then it was still called newcomer novice. It's a that was my entire point, and I think this is what gets looked over a lot of the times. The categories aren't separated correctly in competition at all. They're combined. Right. So you have newcomer novice at the time, which now is beginner improver, intermediate advanced, and phrased when it comes to competing in the USLDC at least. And and Jason says those categories should be separated. That's a hard one, because then should you separate intermediate advanced? No offense, should phrased have its own, or should it just be called advanced?
For everyone who's saying they can't hear me, literally my mouth is right on top of the microphone. So
and I'm getting a full signal, so I'm curious of what's coming in. And Lynn says, question for you both: could we be having the same discussion on intermediate, phrase, advanced categories? Are those 3 words all different? Which ones are the same? I don't think phrase should be a category. I get why they were attempting it. I don't think it should. It's not a category in any other organization, any other thing. They're considered advanced, and I don't understand it, because you can have a great phrase dance that's not even above an improver level dance. There are some out there. Just because it's phrased I don't think makes it advanced.
Automatically difficult.
No, it doesn't. So that one I don't think should be. That's the hard one. Just throw it in. Here's the issue I think with separate intermediate advanced is what is actually an intermediate and what's actually advanced nowadays. Because yes, there are some great, and I know I brought this up earlier because Debbie Rushton said this. Maddie just says Sweet Caroline is a good example. That's a great example, actually, of a dance that's phrased that's not hard. It's not Storm and Stone, if I'm not mistaken either. Yeah. Am I not right? So,
AB.
Yeah. So that one's a hard one. Megan says there's a dance with 2 restarts I used to teach that I would tell my students. It's facing the same wall, 16 counts in, and you hear the lyrics, "This love is like a dream." Restart. Yeah, I tell my students that a tag or restart, they exist. I don't get it. I don't get why we need to have a phrase division. It doesn't necessarily make it hard.
Yeah, it's that's a typical. I like that. That's tricky because, again, it's more of a matter of what patterns are included in the dance. So
agreed.
And another thing that we didn't even talk about this, but another thing that affects the levels is how many direction changes are there.
What? Turning affects the level? No.
Right? Because the more you turn away from the front wall, the more challenging, honestly, the dance becomes, no matter what your patterns are, right? So if you're vinding right, you're vinding left, you're vinding right, you're vinding left, no big deal. But as soon as you start incorporating turns, whether they're quarters, halves, or whatever, I think most instructors would agree with this statement. People find 3/4 turns tricky, no matter what pattern you're doing to get there. 3/4 always tend to throw people for a loop, right? So the direction changes also impact the level.
Dean Hooks. More instructors should teach Sweet Caroline for the musicality alone. That's a whole nother broadcast about musicality, sir.
By the way, I've been doing workshops on musicality lately, and they've been going over really well. So if you're ever at an event or going to an event and you want me to do a musicality class there, please tell me in advance so I can plan for that.
Yes, we're passionate about these topics. I get that, guys. And I know. And people say that, we need to think of the instructors. Okay, we are, because they're the ones that are putting out the confusion. A lot of instructors are the choreographers. Yes, there are some that are not. I get that. But a lot of the instructors and choreographers that are doing this are the ones causing the confusion. Everyone automatically thinks it's the new people. It's not. Yes, they are. That's a whole nother thing. The new people that's coming in, there are some that have the quirks and some that just don't understand it. But that's a lot of them are coming from a different, like the bar scene, and that's a whole nother beast. Because their leveling system of what they would consider hard in a bar is not what we would consider hard. But it's the same. It's the experience in pros. Like Kayla said earlier, we should have a professional panel. You can't get the professionals to agree. Jonathan Sack. What's up, Mr. Sack? He says, don't most people just do a dance because they like it or the music? Who cares about the level? In my opinion, the only reason people try to label their dances in certain categories if they get away with is to get more votes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I didn't have to say it. Thank you.
But okay, so I want to address a couple things in that comment. Thank you, Jonathan. That's awesome.
I almost want to get up and give him a standing ovation. My word.
Well, it's true. I mean, I only do dances that I feel connected, and we just talked about this in one of the podcasts we just recorded.
We did.
We were talking about.
You only teach dances that you want to learn. When I posted the Talk About It Tuesday, I said, what do you look for in dances that you want to learn / teach? And at the end of the podcast, I'll give you a little hint of the last 5 minutes. There shouldn't be a difference. Because in all honesty, if you're passionate about wanting to learn a dance, you're going to be passionate about teaching it. Okay? If you're an instructor and you teach a beginner class and you're going to an event, saying that I'm going there for my students, then why are you taking 20 intermediate advanced dances if you're teaching a beginner class? Okay? Yes, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect because that's what you want to do. But is that actually benefiting your class? No, it is not. Go and take the lower stuff. Why? Because that's what you're going to turn around and go back and teach on Tuesday. So instead of hounding the choreographers on a Friday morning of why they don't have a step sheet and a teach video up because you want to teach to your class on Tuesday, go and take something that you learned a week ago. So, plain and simple.
Yeah. Getting back to Jonathan's comments. So I do understand your point, and that I think that's very valid, that the majority of people learn a dance because they like the song. It connects to them, right?
Agreed.
I'm not going to go and learn
That beats the other comment that we talked about.
Yeah. There's just certain things that don't resonate with me, so I'm not going to bother myself to. No matter how cool the dance might look, I'm like, I don't like that song, or I can't get into it, right? So the music does play a big part, but I do think the level also makes an impact because you have. And the reason I say this is because human beings like comfort. We do not like being pushed out of our comfort zones. So what happens is people look at that level and they're going to choose to go. Like this happens all the time at dance workshops, right?
Yep.
Part of the reason I don't like doing demos is because, and I've done this now where I say, do you want me to dance it full on John Robinson style, or do you want me to dance it the way you're going to do it? And I'm not being rude, but you know what I mean? I can dance it dumbed down, if you will, and not put any style or flair into it and just do the step patterns. Or I can put a little character into it and make it look really fun.
You have character?
So, no. Just a little. And that's part of, I think, I see people automatically looking at levels of dances, specifically at conventions I'm talking about, like what dance they want to take. Because they go, oh, I'm not doing that. It's labeled, there's no way I can do that because it's labeled intermediate advanced or whatever. I'm like, but if you don't go and try it, you may discover. Fred, okay, here's a good specific example from my history. I was at the event in Tampa when it was still there, and Fred Whitehouse demonstrated in the demos, did one of these dances of his, and we all, literally the entire audience was like, what the hell? like we're not going to be able, sorry I said the H word, but we're not going to be able to do that. And even I was like, wow, that's why I wanted to learn it though, because I'm like, that looks cool. There's cool stuff in it. I love the character you had to do it. I want to learn it, right? So then took the class, and I was like, that's it? That's all there is to this dance? It looked way more complicated because Fred put a lot of style and character and attitude in it and did, he might have even done a couple variations during the demo. And I was like, the steps weren't that tricky. It was an A-B dance, but honestly, the patterns weren't that difficult. So sometimes the level, I think people look at that and it can either dissuade them from learning a dance or it can trick them into learning a dance that's not actually the level they think it is. So there's that part of it too. And I forgot what else he said. There was something else. Can you scroll back so I can see? There was one other thing.
Was it pom-poms?
Pom-poms? I don't think so, but that was fun. There was a third thing. Oh, and as far as labeling it for votes, so I'm not sure that's an issue over here in the States. I mean, I'm being serious because I honestly don't know. Like, we don't have... The Crystal Boot Awards barely impacts us over here. And what I mean by that is we don't see a lot of American choreographers being nominated for awards of that kind. So I'm not sure that's a
for the record, guys, for once, I didn't say it. Normally, I get hounded. Boom.
I just don't think that's a priority for people here in the States. Let's put it that way. So...
gosh,
there's so many comments I can't keep up.
John just said also, am I the only one who finds beginner one the hardest? Because as soon as his instructor says it's beginner, I don't pay much attention. Stephen Bennett made a great comment. He goes, what is the criteria that you use to decide what level your dance is? And is it the same for everyone? It's whatever you pretty much want it. Yeah, we're supposed to use common sense, but obviously judging by our talk so far, it's not really common sense. It really isn't. It's not, because it's a lot more difficult. And Lynn, he was meaning as phrased when he said an A-B dance.
Yeah.
Sorry, not absolute beginner.
Yeah. Also, and really quick, sorry, I like to address comments as I see them, or my brain goes, right? So I like what Jonathan said also about, am I the only one who finds beginner the hardest? Because as soon as the instructor says it's beginner, I don't pay as much attention. What I want to say about that... And I love, what's the right word? Not, I can't think of a tactful word. I don't want to say attacking people. But I love questioning people who think that they're advanced or think that they're really high intermediate, because I feel a truly advanced dancer is somebody who can do a beginner dance and make it look completely, awesomely amazing because of all the stuff they can do to it, right? And I have gotten told that many times, that I can make the dumbest dance look incredibly awesome, right? Because of what I put into it. So there's that aspect. We're going off on a different tangent here, but But
shocker, and John went on a tangent.
But you know what I'm saying, though, because
it's true.
I'm going to get on a soapbox for a second. Here's what I see at conventions. You have people who only go to them because they want to learn the hottest, newest thing that's like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and 16 tags and 48 restarts, but they haven't mastered any of the other dances they've learned at the last convention. And when I watch them dance, it really hurts my eyes because I'm like, you don't even look, you haven't mastered anything that you are doing at all. So there's that part of it as well. You think you're a higher level dancer, but technically you're not. Skill-wise, you're not. You're attracted to those dances because they challenge you, which is great. I love that. That's fantastic. I'm happy for you. But take some time to actually learn how to dance well, and then you can do a beginner dance or improve. Why do I love doing all levels, right? I dance all of them because I can put my own flair into anything. I don't really like dances that are over choreographed. So some of the what I would call advanced level dances, I just don't really like because it's all choreographed for me. I can't put any of my own personality into it, right? So there's that aspect of it as well.
So there ends up being two sides of this, actually. There's normal people who write dances and have to non-competitors, not people who don't want to enter choreography competitions. Okay, because there's two different views. You write, and for those who say it's the same, I would love to have a talk with you one day, because your mindset becomes different when it becomes a competition. So leveling for that, and then leveling of what you have to do for competition, because the USLDC has its set of rules. Doug and Jackie's have their set of step rules. Jamie's Fort Wayne, that's a whole nother or totally different beast, because I'll talk about this because you were there. You went through this when I competed in Fort Wayne a couple years ago. End up only competing 2 dances. I literally went back through every newcomer, novice, or beginner and improver of dance that I ever wrote for the USLDCC. Every one of them. Ask me how many I was allowed to compete in her lower division.
How many?
0.
Why?
Because they didn't follow her step. Just like I brought up earlier with Dustin Valcata. He entered something that he had labeled as a newcomer, novice, or beginner improver for Doug and Jackie's. It won it. He had to enter an intermediate in the USLDCC. It's just that simple. Everyone has different rules. So as a choreographer, as Paul James, Paulie, I cannot wait to see you, brother. I've loved it when I just saw your name pop up. I cannot wait to see you when I come over in July. You get both of us because Mr. Showcase is there as well at World Dance Masters. So, yes, I am so looking. He goes, if we're talking beginner dances, then I think there's quite a few choreographers. Yeah.
And sorry, I'm gonna jump in there as well. So what makes a choreographer? Anybody, not anybody, because some people will tell you they can't, right? Or they don't want to. But anybody and everybody these days feels like they can choreograph a dance. Now, I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm saying you all have to start somewhere. I had to start somewhere. My first dance I wrote was 96 counts.
But hold on. Here's my question for you. How long were you in the dance world and dancing and doing stuff like that before you decided to stay?
I had been dancing probably at least a year, more than a year by that point, because I had started teaching. So I started dancing socially first, taking classes, and then was asked by the instructors at the bar where I was teaching if I wanted to instruct. So then I started teaching, and then I decided, looking at some of the dances that we were doing, that I wasn't real happy with them, and I thought, why don't I try writing something? So, of course, my first dance was 96 counts, right? And very high energy. It was to a Brooks and Dunn song back in the 90s. But I had...
Shane. What? Am I hearing a WDM controversial conversation? Bro, I will tell you what, if I can get... And this I would love to do. If you can help me make this happen while we're at WDM, I will gladly record it. I will gladly make it happen. I want... you, Fred, Nicola, Sam, I want a round table. I want a roundtable talk on some of this stuff, on organizations, on dances, on everything. That would be absolutely amazing. Get this man right here in it, Rachel, anybody else, any of the instructors. If I could get all of them in one room, if we can do it all together, oh my word, bro, we can make some magic. Because I've said for years, there's one show that I've wanted to do, and I think me and you've talked about this. I would love to get a representative from each of the organizations.
That'd be very cool.
WCDF, well, obviously now Gold, WDM and UCWDC, and sit down and talk about the differences and why we need a divide. And I don't think we do, but that's a whole nother topic.
We could do
but that could be a whole one. I think it'd be crazy. But yeah, I think it should be.
Like that comment I was talking to you about earlier about people having a cow over whether it's country or not, but we'll say that for another day.
Chris Jocks, let's do that, the flying handbag. I'll buy round one. Oh, that would be bad. That will be Paul James, Shane McKeever. I don't think the rest of the world can handle it. The rest, I don't know. It'd be interesting. I think it would be, and this brought up the conversation at the beginning of the show when Kayla said we should have a governing board. I don't think the agreements across the board would never happen. Everyone has a different opinion, hence why we see these things that happen. You can't.
Yeah, but that's when compromises are made, right? That's true of any governing.
Correct.
Thing, whatever, right? That's true of your government where you live. So, and again, people can't agree on anything with that sort of government either. So you make compromises, right? Jason's first dance was 112 counts. You go, boy.
Shane McKeever, me neither. They should all just come to WDM. Oh, this is why I love you. Oh, as long as it's not Jack Daniels. So, Maddie G's volunteer as project manager. We might have started a. We're going to need one.
Let's do it. Yeah,
I'm all for it. You know me. I'm all for. And we started this. I started the highway, and I got into the talks, and I wanted to bring up the conversations that people are just too. I will use the word sometimes too afraid to have. And you know what? I can see both sides. I'll ask the questions. If you're going to give me because here's the thing. If you're going to give me a reason for something, give me a reason why. Don't just say, oh, well, that's because it's been. No, Give me a reason why. I used to have, back when I was competing, and I know I have some UCWDC people in here. There was a dance for advance back in the day, and it was a nightclub, and it was written by two people. And I took a lesson from one of the choreographers. And there was a step combination in it, and I asked to see it, and they couldn't do it. The choreographers could not do the step combo that they put in the dance.
Okay.
Steve Bennett, at least 5 wise. So that's the problem I have right there alone. That's one of the reasons why I'm not afraid to ask the question, why? You going to tell me to do something? Yeah. If you're going to tell me to do something, give me a reason why I'm doing it. I always used to challenge my coaches. I'd ask them if they're going to coach me. Hey, you need to do this. Okay, why do I need to do this? Tell me why I need to do this to make me understand. Don't just tell me to do it to do it.
It's kind of like when choreographers come to me for feedback after the comp, right? I just don't give generic, I don't even know the right word, trash comments. Like, I can't even think of anything because mine are specific, right? So we have very limited. I'm just going to quickly go there. If you're not familiar, when we do choreography comps, most of the time we have very limited time to actually write comments on the paper if they actually give us time to do it. Because you're on to the next dance, right? So you have a couple of seconds to write something. So I'll write something to remind me, like, love the second 8, third 8 needs help. That's all I can have time to write at that moment. But when people come to me for specific feedback, I can then tell them exactly what I mean by that. What is it about your third 8 that needs work? What is it about the flow that isn't making sense? Or what is it about the song that you're not hitting in your choreography? So I can give them specific examples. It's not just generic, like, oh, it should be better put together, or, it should flow nicer. Well, in what specific area?
I knew it was going to happen. I'm like, my phone started popping up that somebody was trying to call in.
Yeah. So I agree with you. Specifics are,
Yeah.
And here's something to think about too. If you're a choreographer and you're really not sure what level, feel free to message. Like, people message me all the time. If I'm not busy, I'll answer you. Right? I travel a lot, but I do try to answer people. So somebody just recently said to me, I'm not sure if this dance is improve or intermediate. And I said, are you competing it somewhere? Because it's
a good question.
It's going to depend on the organization. They said, oh, no, it's just for a social release to release
right.
to the world. I said, I actually walked through. I taught myself the dance, right? They sent me the step sheet. I'm very good at learning things off of step sheets. People these days seem to always need a video. I agree, it helps, but I can still learn a dance off a step sheet. So I learned the dance, and by the time they sent me the video, I already knew it. So I was able to give them specific pointers in specific areas of the dance,
right,
where it would be, this is what's making it intermediate level-ish versus more improver level-ish. Cool.
Jason Turner, John sending you a dance night. And to go back on what people were saying about the advanced and intermediate advanced, I entered a dance. It was advanced a couple years ago, and I got told by a judge that there was one step in it that they thought was too hard. They came out to me after the competition, and I entered it 2 or 3 times. It ended up placing, this one judge came up to me and goes, I liked all your dance, but this one section, it seemed a little hard. And I go, okay. And I've been told that. She goes, and you didn't think to take it out? No. And they asked me why. I'm like, well, it's labeled advanced for a reason.
Shouldn't there be something difficult?
So, right. Where do we go past advanced? What am I supposed to label it?
Yep.
Super international Fred, Shane, and Roy and Guyton level?
Intergalactic level.
Right. That's the new one.
Can do this dance.
That's the new one.
But and so that's going to be a whole different topic. I don't want to get started on it, but people who are judging these competitions need to be on the same page. Let's just lay that out there. Shane
McKeever. Oh, I love you because I know someone who would agree with you, and I think I'm one of them. Shane McKeever, unpopular opinion, scrap set sheets, video walkthroughs only. Bro, for our Take the Ride, we'd have been golden then because since we just have to do videos. That's great.
You know what?
A part of me doesn't mind that, actually.
Yeah. And this topic actually came up when I was in Sweden. I interviewed Adam and Jose, and one of the things Jose said was that he doesn't like doing step sheets because English is not his first language.
Nope.
So I don't ever stop to think about that. People in other countries, there are people in other countries who do line dancing, right, all around the world, and many of them don't speak English. It's not their first language. So for them trying to put that into words is really tricky. Now, I grew up. I grew up in the line dance world.
He never grew up. He's like Peter Pan. He never grew up, guys.
I'm trying not to. The body's rebelling, right? But I think what we need to realize, though, and I get it what you're talking about videos. I understand it because we're in a video world now. Everything is presented in video. We have social media. We've got Instagram and TikTok, and like everything's in a visual medium. There are still people who don't actually learn well from just watching, right? I can actually learn a dance off a step sheet sometimes better than I can learn it from the video, right? And the reason I say that is it's great if the person doing the video walkthrough actually knows how to do the dance.
Well, that's a whole nother topic that we've done before, and I'm not even getting into that because that is a whole nother level.
So, but if I understand what you're saying, and it makes sense, especially nowadays, because people, that's how we operate now. We all watch stuff, right?
Yeah.
People don't read anymore. People can't even write their own name. It's coming to the day when people won't know how to handwrite anything because we don't do everything's touch this screen, push this button, just sign your scribbly thing right on this thing. You just don't even have to be able to write, right? So I get it. I understand that. Oh, good. Somebody doesn't mind doing step sheets. Thank you.
I love Gordo's post. There will be a day when you can feed an AI a video of steps and it will transcribe it for you. Ah, dude.
Actually, you know what? Somebody actually.
I would love that.
Somebody.
That would be killer.
Somebody actually said to me, I should write an app.
No.
That will write a step sheet for you.
Don't bother. AI is coming.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have to do it.
Yeah, Shane goes, honestly, through school, I struggled so much with writing an essays, and it apparently followed me into adulthood. You know what? Here's the thing, and I have an issue because I remember when we did the show on Hold This videos and stuff like that, a lot of people have posted that they will not even look at a dance if it doesn't have a video attached to it, which... If that's the case, what the hell is the point of a step sheet then?
Yeah.
If they're just going to wait for the video, because that's a whole different topic about whether or not it's a demo, whether or not it's a walkthrough, which direction. We're not going to get into that one because we'll have a huge argument on that.
And I think I have what I feel is a legitimate question. There are things that, how should I say this right? Even top dancers in our industry
can't write
when they do and but even when they do a video, are you able to? Videos are great because you can actually like some things are impossible to write on a piece of paper. Like how do you explain Guyton's hand movements, right? How do you write that on a piece of paper? That's really tricky to do, to explain that. It takes up a lot of words.
Yeah.
So the videos make sense to have. I think step sheets do have a valuable place, and if you don't know how to write here's a wild thought. If you're not comfortable writing step sheets, have somebody that you know who knows the dance, who you've taught the dance to, who actually knows it and knows how to do it. They can write it for you. Scott Blevins doesn't write his own step sheets. Did you know that? So you can. By the way, I'm hiring myself out to write step sheets. It's $100 a step.
Right. I'm very well aware of that, and that was my argument when originally an organization wanted a step sheet to be judged as part of the competition, and I'm like, that's how. I don't see how a step sheet makes you a choreographer. I really don't. Well, you need the writing. Well, getting someone else to write it doesn't add to your talent.
Right.
You know, perfect example. If I write a killer dance and John writes my step sheet, his writing ability should not care. Never ask me to write your step sheets. I'm washing my hair.
Paul James, you don't have hair.
Right. I'm like, but their writing ability should not determine how well my dance is judged. My writing ability should not turn around and determine how well my creativity is judged.
Right. And the other aspect of that, Kelly, is there's a lot of step sheets are crap.
Preach.
They're horribly written. And this is from, I'm not talking about people from other countries who English is not their first language. I'm talking about.
No, I'm talking about
English is their first language. Right. So I cannot tell you how many times I've submitted a dance that's not mine to teach at an event, and I've had to spend time fixing the.
I remember when Jen added the soul room. When she added all the soul dancers, they don't do step sheets. I remember specifically.
Right, Natasha?
I remember specifically writing step sheets for Ed and Kenny J and all that. Chain reaction. I'm sorry. Oh my word. If anybody knows the dance I'm talking about, oh my word. I think it took me and Jen hours.
It was like,
hours.
Wasn't it like 3 pages?
It was. It turned out because there's no way I was getting it in 1 page. You looked at it. There was no way anybody could have got. It would have had to been like 0.6 font.
Yeah.
In order.
And so that is a good example of where a step sheet.
Steven, where competition ends, a step sheet does not match the videos. Exactly.
But I think that's a good example of too, like a dance that it was really hard to capture all that on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Right.
Agreed.
You had to know what it looked like to do. Sometimes it's hard to put that in words. So it's a balance. It's, I don't think we should completely do away with step sheets. Sorry, kids. I learned better off a step sheet, honestly, unless I'm taking a class from the person.
Well,
right?
This is also coming from the man who likes to read and drive. So
yes,
he likes to read. So it's okay.
I'm old school.
That was a great show.
We can't be done yet.
It's been over an hour. Normally I try to stop these in an hour, and we need to talk some more. But we got to save some for the podcast and save some for another episode possibly. As Amy just says, hey, glad to see you back. Yes, it is back. I'm going to try to do these back on a regular level or schedule. is the plan now that I'm here in the new studio, Alabama. For those who don't know, Kelly and I moved in January. But do you?
It should be a 2-hour show, Shane. I
agree.
But he's got a business call coming.
I do have a call that Kelly will be here in about 45 minutes to take. But I'm here in the new house. We're here in Alabama, and
nice. I like it.
As I'm gonna go to the bigger screen. We actually got stuff here in the background and not just a wall. Steven, 2 to 3 hours, bro. We could talk. Like we recorded 2 episodes that lasted about 2.5 hours total between the two yesterday. We got at least 3 to 4 planned between now and when he leaves Friday. As my wife says, I'm leaving work in 10. She's watching. You're fine. I know. I know, Jeff. I know. And that should be your next topic. Sessies versus videos. Oh, Alabama does pies, bro. Come visit. We have a 4-bedroom house. I got plenty of room, Paulie. We can eat. We can eat, bro. Barbecue, Mexican. We can eat seafood. You name it. We got this. But yes, the plan is to hopefully get back on a regular routine of doing this. Probably not every day, but got some things coming up. My whole office is listening. Oh, geez. Steven, this gives me good ideas for John's classes for the event. I got the craze coming up with Trevor, my lovely wife, and Bree. We're going down. We got Rob, Holly, and Dustin. Week after that, Kelly and I have been invited to be the videographers at USA Grand National Swing Event, and in Atlanta, Georgia. And right from there, of course, I am leaving, and we're going to head to the Line Dance Marathon via Florida as I go back to Florida to pick up the dance floor. And that's actually how we want to close. For those who did not see Scott Blevins' post this morning, we just want to give a huge shout out to Mama Jean and her family for what they're going through. For those who've not seen Scott's post all over Facebook, Mama Jean was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and they are treating it. And we are hoping she fights like crazy and gets through that and just stays with us a little bit longer so we can enjoy her. Marathon's not going to be the same without her at the helm, like Scott said. And I know Scott's got a great team behind him, and we are going to do everything in our power for those of us that will be there to make it one amazing event. So huge shout out to Mama Jean. This woman holds a very special place in my heart. For those who don't know, Mama Jean and James, back when it was still JG2, gave me my first DJ job at an event, gave me my first contract as a DJ for the event. And I have very, very many memories there with Guyton, JP, and the whole clan for many, many years. So definitely a very special place in my heart for Mama Jean. So I am hoping she fights like crazy and gets through this. So hope everyone enjoyed the show today. I know we went off on a little bit crazy town USA, but you know how we do. So look ahead for what's going to be next, guys. Look ahead for when we're going to post. Like I said, we're going to have, I'll have my walkthrough video for the week posted later today. If you don't, go check out the podcast. We just dropped episode 12 on Monday. It's all about technique and what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And we got some banging episodes coming to you. So until next time, we're going to end a controversial conversation way. I'm Kelly Cavallaro.
And I'm John Robinson, also known as Mr. Showcase.
And until next time, guys, see ya.
Well, that went by quick.